Tanse Dodimak. That means, how are you, my relatives? My name is Bertha Cardinal. I'm from the Cree Nation from Alberta originally. And I remember when I was a child, we moved to BC and we didn't have no land. I remember as me growing up in tents and squatting, we're squatters of the land, and we'd move just like no man. We'd move from one mountain to another mountain where the harvest and where the jobs were at that time. And it's so strange. I can remember back to when I was around 4 years old, 3 years old, because I still remember the things that I was taught in the upbringing of my life, and the upbringing of my life from my grandmothers. And when I say grandmothers, that means like in our Cree, we don't even have one grandma. We have multiple grandmothers and multiple sisters or family and relatives and grandfathers. So I was one of the fortunate, lucky ones of my family because I was the oldest, and then the teachings of my grandmother and her sisters and my other grandmothers um, always took the oldest child and learn about the way of life. We had our little way of life at home, but that was the teachings of my parents. They taught me morals, principles, values, the foundation of my circle, of my family circle. And then my grandmother and her sisters taught us the teachings of our way of life, of our culture, our medicines, our harvesting. So I live in that lifestyle to this day. And for me to live in that lifestyle and bring it into the urban area, it was difficult. And for me, it was difficult because I had to re-educate myself in Western of academic of education. So it was like, okay, Bertha, where do you go from here? Because you're traditional, you're brought up culturally, you harvest, you pick berries, you live off the land, and now you're in an urban area. You have to, you're married, you have your own family, and bring up your children. And we believe the biggest thing for us is we have to, as bring in our families and doing the circle of holistic of what I talk about, the principles and the morals in that area. So I had to re-educate myself. I had to go back to school. I did all and balance it with my culture and tradition. To this day, I still do that. I still balance everything togetherness and with culture and the harvesting, the tradition, the teachings, and education is very number one to balance it, because I think in future of our vision we need our children to have that education and to have them to expand their visions where, and because we never had that in the past, and now we could do that. We could all some way somehow find a way to do the proper education for our children, are supporting them in the best way we can as we know how and as what the support system is out there. But we still need our culture too, because for me, even my kids are educated, and there are, they have their own circle of life. They have their own built, their own holistic circle. They still need the traditional teachings. So for me, for my traditional teachings is, my grandchildren. I have three beautiful grandchildren, and my oldest one is 11 years old. And today I sit here and watching her. 2 nights ago, she was she was doing deer meat, making hamburger with her grandfather. That's the teachings I'm talking about. Learning just a little bit, and even if they're there for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, they still have part of the teachings, and they're doing it. They're doing the teachings. We make our own berry picking, their pies, our jam, our fillers, and even if they pick only half a pail or 15 minutes of picking, at least they're going back to the land. They're going back to the harvesting. They have that memories, so they could carry on the journey that we put out forth and what my grandparents and my ancestors have put out. So I live that kind of lifestyle to this today's world, and my grandchildren are there for the support in the best way I can. But you know, even we're traditional and cultural and the teachings we do, we still have to look at the Western technology that's out there. We still have to look at the education, our financial, our homes, because we need that. We need that today. And I think a lot of times when I was growing up, it was a joke in our village. Who had many horses? And the horses in your yard or in your field or in your farm or wherever your 5 acres you have or 2 acres is if you have one horse, two horse, or many horses, they were the well-off family. They didn't have money at that time. It was who have many horses. Now it's like who has more cars, who has the fanciest car. But in our First Nations, I think where I come from in the Cree, where I was brought up and how I was taught, is we didn't have any money. We just work from job to job the best way you can. So what we did is we hunted, we trapped, we pick berries, we pick our herbs, we pick our medicines. And for me, that was a gift of the teachings of my ancestors and my grandmothers. And I still carry that teachings. I still do that to this day. I haven't bought any pie fillings, any, like I have my own moose meat, my deer meat, my buffalo meat, my fish. And if we don't have it, we have a bargain trade. We do a trade. If I see somebody from down south and they have something and I have something from the north, the connection that we do, we still do the trading. We don't buy our stuff. We make sure we trade with our, even certain medicines we have. There's a certain medicines that we can't pick in our territory, so we trade. But when we do a trade bargain, we're very careful of how we trade with what families or what band or what it is, because we have to look at the holistic, the wellness of that person too, because you have to look at is when they're picking berries, and then how the offerings and the prayers and the blessing of your harvest. So I really look at holistic of everything. And even our fish, when we do our fish, like where I come from, we have a lot of northern pike, whitefish. We don't get salmon. So what we do is, but we get a lot of buffalo and a lot of moose meat and a lot of deer and a lot of elk. So the coastal, they want buffalo, they want salmon, they want elk or deer. We trade, we bargain trade, we bargain trade. So there's no exchange of money. So traditional people bargain trade. And I think it's always, like for me, ever since I haven't bought jam. I make my own jams. I do my own berries, my own pie fillings. I'll tell you a story about myself this year. It was, sometimes certain berries are really hard to find, or certain herbs in different, and all over, because of the environment of our gas, the environment of what's out there about, how they spray chemicals. So we don't pick near where they spray or where the chemicals are. We have to go way back in the mountains. So when we do that, me and my husband, we go to back in the mountains. So we found a real some musquite tea. Musquite tea is very powerful in our Cree medicines. It's something that we drink every day. We have it on our stove. As growing up, it was always on our stove. It gives you a lot of vitamins. It, like for colds, it relaxes you. So what I did, and it has a lot of vitamin C in there. So what we have is every day we would have a cup of muscat tea. We never had regular tea or coffee. It was always something that we picked, and our grandmothers taught us how to make it and what is it for. So I went, and me and my husband went this summer, and I found these. My husband found, actually, it was my husband that found these high bush blueberries. They're like mountain berries, and they're between blueberries and huckleberries. Oh, they're so good for pies and jam. So I was in my glory when we found them, and then on top of that, there was a muskeg swamp on a side, and there was muskeg tea. It was like a gift from heaven for me. That's what makes my world. That's what, when I find something that's clean and that's there, the Creator give you gift. It's, to me, that's the most powerful thing there is when we live the way, because it's something that we need for the winter, something we need for our harvesting, because in four quarters, 4 seasons, and our moon 4 times around the world, this was one of the things that was given to us to find. So we went one weekend, we pick our stuff, we give our tobacco, our offerings, our blessing. So my husband said, do you think you have enough? I said, I don't know, because I want to pick for somebody else. And he said to me, I said, I want to do 4 bags for this person, 4 bags for this person. I said, as a gift, I said, as an honor, because they can't go pick themselves. Then he looked at me, okay. My husband's very, because we always harvest and we give to the people back that don't have, or some elders or somebody that's in a hospital and their family needs it. We share our food because it's a gift from the Creator that gives us, and give us that moose or give us the berries or the harvesting. It's there. So after we did our blessings and everything like that, we went back. Then I start picking more berries, and usually when we start off togetherness. Then all of a sudden, I'm a wanderer, and when I find, I just have my head down and I pick like this, and I go. So I separated from my husband, so there's only 2 of us. And then when I separated, I was way, way back in the mountains, and I thought, I don't hear nothing. I just hear birds and bees flying. I thought, where am I? So I looked around and I couldn't. Oh, I thought, oh, I better get back because there's grizzly there. Right? There's grizzly, and there's some sightings I seen, and so I thought, oh my, what if I'm by myself? What if I fall? So I'm always, because my mind is always thinking, all these things about what if something happened and I'm by myself. So I head back, and I thought, I'm lost. So my grandmother taught me one time. She said, Bertha, when you're somewhere and you get lost, she said, always look at the sky. Always look at the mountains, the trees, and how the wind goes, and then where the mountains are. And that's exact. And listen, she said, listen, put your mind and listen. And that's exactly what I did. I went back and I kept doing that. And I kept listening, and all of a sudden I heard cars going by. I could hear, it was still. And then finally I found a gravel road. I went back in a gravel road, and then I thought, oh, where did I go? And here, about 2 miles down the road, my truck was parked, and I must have went way around and everything like that, I thought. So I told my family this, and they said, Mom, my daughter said, why are you doing this? Why are you putting, you guys are old. I thought, oh my God, I'm not that old. I always sometimes say, I don't think I'm that old, because, because it's natural to me, natural for me to do these. And for me, it's just like, for me to find, me and my husband finds things like that, like, for berries and our herbs, like way back in the mountain, they're clean and everything. You don't think about things about animals or anything. I said, if you do things right and if you do things good, I said, it will come naturally, and then nothing will harm you. I said, it's just that so she said, Mom, next year when you go down, you do not leave that. You guys put ribbons on the tree. So for them to be safe, for them to have their conscience themselves, for them to say, okay, I said I will do that. So they, you know what I mean. So it's just like, okay, they'll be okay in their minds. But even that, my kids, my daughter, and that they have to come down there to the mountains, see where we pick. They pick, we eat together, and then they done their thing for harvesting. For fish, the same thing. We make 1 day or 2 days, same thing, harvesting. For moose meat, for buffalo, for deer, just as long they're there. They're part of it. And even if they're just watching, or maybe they're just begging, or maybe they're just labeling, they're there to witness the teachings, and then it's on their circle. So that's what I think a way of life is. And a lot of our different culture, a lot of different teachings, everybody has it. Nobody's right or wrong or how it is or what it is. It's up to that person in that circle. It's up to that individual family, how they do it, how they live. So a lot of this, I bring it to the center here. I bring a lot of the teachings that my grandmother taught me. I share it with the community. I share it with youth, children, families, elders. Come through our doors, and I share that the best way I can. If I cannot answer, or if I cannot get something for them or something that they need, I will try to find somebody that can do it or assist them, or go back to form their community or their band or their chief or somebody in advocacy for them. I'll try my best. So that's the way I live. That's how I am. And I have never will change, and never, that's who I am and how it is. It's the way of life, I think. And now the Friendship Center here, even we're making cultural, bringing, certain things, certain teachings. We start to bargain trade. We start to bargain trade some stuff like we cannot get. I think that's bringing back our traditions, bringing back our teachings. We're starting to use our voices. We're getting that fear out of our system. Merci.